So a vowel is a sound that is not stopped or obstructed by your tongue, lips, or teeth. And it can just be sustained. Your vocal cords are used, so it's not like a your vocal cords are used and it is a sound that is not obstructed by your lips, tongue, or teeth. Generally, the letters that represent vowel sounds are A, E, I, O, U, and Y when it's not the first letter. However, R and even W can be considered, what do they call them, semivowels? Liquid vowels, I think. It's either semi or liquid. I need to review that. Because the sound is unobstructed, no, I shouldn't say that. The sound is still free to be sustained. It's not blocked, but it is slightly obstructed. So because your lips are slightly obstructing the sound, it's called a what did I say, a liquid vowel or a semivowel? A semivowel, I think, is what it is. So that's why each month we work on a vowel. So we've had A month, I month, E month, O, U, Y. Now we're having R and W. Also, R and W affect the sound of the vowel right before it. And for W, it affects the sound before it and after it. And we're going to learn all about W in the next lesson. But today, we're going to review what we've learned so far this month about R-controlled vowels. So if you are just joining us, welcome, hang in there. This might be more of a listening lesson for you since we're recapping what we've learned the last 4-ish lessons. And then we're going to learn something new next time. So what we've learned about R-controlled vowels so far is that AR says R, as in art, car, or march. It can come at the beginning, the middle, or the end, like art, car, or march. We've also learned that ER, IR, and UR all make the same sound. They all say R. They make the same sound as an R. ER is by far most common on that one, and ER usually comes at the end of words. And then we've learned that OR. OR says or most of the time when it is at the beginning and middle of any length of word, such as or, orb, orchard, or in the middle, fort, portal. It can come at the end of short words like for. However, when it comes at the end of longer words, multisyllable words, then it is no longer stressed or accented. Because multisyllable words, usually that last syllable is not stressed or accented. So when you find OR at the end of a longer word, it's usually going to sound like such as sailor. You hear that sound. Trying to think of another OR at the end of a multisyllable word. There are a lot. If I think of one, I'll write it down. But OR will almost always say or. But once in a while, you'll see it at the end of a long word, and it will be spelling the sound. In today's lesson, we're going to have OR spell the OR sound and ER spell the sound at the end because those are the most common. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, so with that in mind, let's spell together the word, nonsense word, bore pit. Bore pit. We're going to separate the sounds first. This is why we do all of that sound work at the beginning. B, O, er. I'm going to separate those two sounds. Even though or, when we do reading class, we're learning to recognize it as a unit so that our brain will learn to recognize that that O is being controlled by the R. But when we spell, we have to spell each sound. So here's the O. B, O, er, p, I, t. Consonants. B, O, er, p, I, t. This O sound is going to be spelled with an O. O will say O when the next letter is an R. O will say O when the next letter is an R. Even though the tab 2 rule might make you think that that O should say ah, we need to learn to recognize this OR as a type of a unit because that R controls the O sound. And then the I is spelled. Now you know that I can be spelled with an I or with an A. Isn't that just fun? However, this one's not very often. This one is a lot of the time. I'm going to say a solid 92% of the time is going to be spelled with an I. So, and that I can say I right there just fine because there is not a vowel in the next 1 or 2 spots. So there's bore pit. Your word without me is core-timp. Spell the K with a C. Core-timp. K-O-R-T-I-M-P. Dot your vowels. Core-timp. It does. Ridwan, I think that's how you say your name. It does, and that AR is making its unaccented sound, which sounds like that Very well. Very good question. Bore pit. No, your word is core-timp. Core-timp. Spell the K with a C. And my lips are together for the sound before the P. Core-timp. That's a good question, Lily. Let me address that when we're done. Core-timp. Good. So our consonant sounds are K, O, R, T, I, M, P. We know that O can say O when the next letter is an R. That's our reading rule for this month. And here we have an I that is spelling the I sound because the next 2 letters are consonants. Core-timp. Yeah? All right, Lily has a question. In the word scepter, why is the S when the E is there to help the C say its sound of S? I have no idea. I do not know. I have a sneaky feeling that that is either an old English word, but I have an even better feeling that it's a foreign word, and that affects this SC. You're going to see that a lot, like in scene or scenery, scepter. It does happen, but I'm not sure why. I love that question because now I want to go discover why. Thank you for asking it, Lily. I love learning new things. All right, number 2. Together. Garpani. Garpani. G, A, R, P, A, N, E. Garpani. Consonants. G, A, R, P, A, N, E. Now here is our ah that you might have thought was an O, because O will say ah prior to coming to this class. You might have thought that an O would say ah in this spot because that is what O usually says, as in October or stomp. It usually says ah. However, you are learning to recognize this vowel R. Any vowel that has an R after it, that R is going to change its sound. It's going to control the sound of that vowel. And if we want the R sound, like in art or cart, that is spelled with an AR. So our word was garpani. Okay, we have 2 vowel sounds left. Ah. I can spell this ah sound with just a regular O because we always try the most common first. And if it works, stop, you're done. So can this O say ah in this spot? It can't. It can't because of the tab 2 rule. Ah needs 2 consonants after it. If there's not 2, make 2. Now it can say ah in that spot. And then the E sound at the end of a longer word is usually spelled with a Y. Garpani. Now keep all of that in mind for your word here. to do without me. Garpani. All right, let's try your word here. Your word is car-toppy. Car-toppy. Spell the k with a C. K-R-T-O-P-E. And then put it in the Q&A so I can see. Car-toppy. Yes. Good, Alyssa. Car-toppy. Mm-hmm. Right. Good. A lot more people are getting this right than Garpani. Good job. Car-toppy. Probably because you know how to spell car, which helps, doesn't it? But remember, you can't ever rely on your memory of a word in isolation when you hear it within a longer word. You can't. You just can't. Because vowels, the sounds of the vowels are spelt, the spelling of the vowels are different if they're at the end, or if at the beginning, or if they're in the middle. So you can't rely on a vowel sound at the end of a single word to be spelled the same way if you hear it within a longer word. It happens to work in this word though, in car-toppy. So we have consonants k, a, t, a, p, e. Vowels, ah. It's not going to be an O. That's the most common spelling for the ah sound, but we know this R is controlling this vowel sound. And when you hear an ah before an R, it's spelled with an A. There's car. Ah. Now we're going to try the most common spelling, which is an O. Ah is a short vowel sound, which requires two consonants after it. If there's not two, make two. Now it can say ah just fine. The E sound at the end of a multi-syllable word is spelled with a Y. Car-toppy. All right, the next one is a bit of a doozy. My goodness. I wonder if I should, I wonder if I should warm up to this. Yeah, let's do a medium one, another medium one. I want har-tempid. Har-tempid. And let's just have you do this one without me. Har-tempid. Ha-er-t-e-m-p-id. Har-tempid. Go ahead if you have a question, throw it in that Q&A for me. Har-tempid. Now this is an big juicy hint here. This is an this is an I. Har-tempid. Two different sounds. I. I. Har-tempid. Good. Har-tempid. Pid. Har, not hard. There's no d. Har-tempid. All right, let's try it. So consonants, we have a, t, m, p, id. Ah, usually spelled with an O. However, if you have an R after it, it's going to be an A. That says ah, R. Har, not hard, right? Try to put away the words in isolation if you hear them within longer words. There's no D in this word. Har-tempid. Is spelled with an E, and it's a short vowel which requires two consonants after it. There are already two consonants after it, so we don't have to double anything. It's perfect just the way it is. Same with this I. I is spelled with an I. It does not have a vowel in the next one or two spots, so nothing needs to be doubled. It's perfectly fine just the way it is. There is har-tempid. Now, according to the chat, that one was a hard word for a lot of people. So let's do another one similar. Parfendip. Parfendip. Par. There's another my mouth is open on the D, I, p. In the middle. I at the end. Parfendip. Parfendip. Nice. There we go. And the first sound is a p, 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 p. Parfendip. Good. Feel free to change your answer. Mouth is open. This is an F. I'm going to give you that because it might be hard to hear in the mic. Yeah. And then this is a P. I'm going to give you that one also because I see a lot of people are putting a B right there. So it's probably hard to hear in the mic. Parfendip. Okay. Let's spell the rest of the consonants. So we have P. By the way, if you heard a B and you spelled it with a B, brilliant. That's perfect because you're spelling what you heard correctly. I intended to say parfendip. All right, well, here we have a f, n. My mouth is open, tongue is to the roof of my mouth. N. Here's our d, I, and another p, parfendip. Ah is usually spelled with an O unless the next letter is an R. Then we spell the ah sound with an A because AR says R. Parfait, spelled with an E. It's a short vowel which requires two consonants after it, which there are, so it's just fine. Same with this I is spelled with an I. Also follows the tab 2 rule, so it's just fine. Parfendip. Good. When you say it again, it was an N. Okay. All right, let's do one more slightly easier, but they're never quite easy, are they? Chorted. Chorted. Ch-o-er. What am I doing? T-id. Chorted. I feel like that might be a real word. Chorted. If it is, let me know. Oh, good, Maria. Chorted. I, right here. I like inside. I. Chorted. Chorted. Why do I feel like that's a real word? Chorted. Okay, so our consonants are ch, o, t, I, d. Now we know O-R spells the OR sound in the beginning and middle especially. And then I is spelled with an I, so there's chorted. Now did that seem easy? Did that seem easier than parfendip or hartempid or garpani? Well, guess what? If that was the first word that I gave you today, it wouldn't have been easy. But since you exercised your knowledge, it became easier because you're learning new things, new nerve pathways are being created, giving it a place for this knowledge to sit. And the more you practice and apply it, then the deeper that knowledge gets. So that word might not have been easy at the beginning, but it was probably easier at the end because you came today. And that wouldn't have happened had you not had come. So all of that knowledge is now yours, embedded a little deeper than it might have been before. Congratulations. Next time we're going to face that W. A lot of people call it bossy W, but we're not going to let it boss us around. So I'll see you on Wednesday when we will put W in its place. Bye, everybody.